Have you ever walked back into a room where you once suffered a great, humiliating defeat? For weeks after my first major account hit zero, I couldn't bring myself to even look at my trading desk. It sat there in the corner of my apartment like a silent, accusing monument to my failure. Every time I passed that door, I felt a physical chill, a tightening in my throat that I couldn't explain. The monitors, which had once been bright with the neon glow of hope and the promise of financial freedom, were now just dark, rectangular voids. They didn't show charts anymore. They only reflected my own tired, defeated face in the gray glass. But eventually, as with all things, the dust begins to settle. The initial, sharp sting of shame, the kind that makes you want to disappear from the world, slowly fades into a dull, persistent ache. And then, from that ache, something unexpected begins to grow, a quiet, stubborn curiosity. I found myself sitting down at that desk again late one Tuesday night. I wasn't there to trade. I wasn't there to recover my losses. I was there to understand. As an engineer, I was fundamentally trained that if a complex machine fails, you don't just walk away and curse the stars. You take it apart, piece by piece, bolt by bolt. You examine every gear, every circuit, and every line of code to find the exact point of structural integrity loss. You look for the why. I realized that I couldn't run away from the market because the market wasn't the monster under the bed. The market was just a mirror. The problem wasn't the price action. The problem was sitting in my chair. I had tried to build a skyscraper of dreams on a foundation of pure arrogance. And now, I had to be the one to clear the debris. The money was gone. That was a reality I finally accepted, but the engineer inside me was still alive. And he was demanding an explanation. I had to ask myself, why did a man who spent years mastering complex calculus, fluid mechanics, and structural safety fail so miserably at something as seemingly simple as a red and green candle? That realization was the beginning of my second journey. A journey not for profit, but for truth. Welcome back to WalkAlone Trading. Today, let's talk about the hardest transition I ever had to make. Shifting my mind from the world of certainties to the world of probabilities. This is how I started to rebuild from zero. The very thing that made me a successful engineer was the exact same thing that was killing me in the world of trading. You see, in engineering, there is always a correct answer. If you follow the laws of physics, if you apply the right formulas for stress and strain, the bridge will hold. There is a direct, unbreakable relationship between input and output. Logic is king, and certainty is the goal. I spent my entire career believing that if you work hard enough and calculate long enough, you can eliminate risk entirely. In my early days of trading, I unknowingly brought this bridge-building mentality to the charts. I approached the market as if it were a complex differential equation waiting to be solved. I thought that if I could just find the perfect combination of indicators, the right RSI setting, the perfect moving average cross, the ultimate Fibonacci retracement, I would unlock the grand formula for wealth. I spent hundreds of hours in a state of intellectual obsession, trying to solve the market as if it were a machine made of gears and levers. I thought more information would lead to more certainty. But here is the trap that catches every analytical mind. The market is not a physical structure governed by gravity. It is a living, breathing, and often irrational mass of human emotions, greed, fear, hope, and despair, all colliding in real time. My engineer's ego couldn't accept the fact that in trading, 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. Sometimes, 1 + 1 equals 5. Sometimes, it equals -10. And sometimes, the answer simply doesn't exist. I remember looking at a perfect setup, a textbook breakout with high volume. Supported by every indicator in my arsenal. Every rule in my manual said the price should go up. I put my money in with absolute certainty. And the market immediately crashed. I felt a sense of personal betrayal. I felt like the laws of physics had suddenly stopped working and the world had gone mad. I would get angry at the screen, shouting that the market was wrong because it wasn't following my logic. But the market is never wrong. Only my expectation was wrong. I was trying to use a ruler to measure a cloud. This is the engineer's trap, the dangerous belief that because you are smart, because you are logical, you can outthink a system that is fundamentally driven by the unpredictable whims of millions of people. I had to learn the hard way that the market doesn't care about my formulas or my rightness. It only cares about flow. To survive, I had to do something painful. I had to break my own brain. I had to unlearn the need to be right and learn the need to be profitable. And those two things, as I found out, are worlds apart. In the world of professionals, where your value is often measured by how many correct answers you can provide, the phrase, "I don't know," is usually viewed as a confession of incompetence. For an engineer like me, a person literally paid to provide certainty and structural solutions, saying those three words initially felt like a deep humiliation. But in the brutal arena of trading, I soon realized that, "I don't know," is not a sign of weakness, it is, in fact, the greatest strength a trader can possess. This profound shift began when I truly sat down to study the concept of probability. This was the exact moment the light bulb finally flickered on in the suffocating darkness of my room. I realized a shocking truth. I didn't need to know what was going to happen next in order to make money. It sounds like a paradox, a contradiction to everything we are taught in school, but it is the ultimate reality of the markets. I only needed to know that over a series of 100 trades, my edge would produce a positive result. Think about a casino. The house has no idea who will win the next hand of blackjack. They might lose $10,000 in a single hour to a lucky player. Do they panic? Do they change the rules of the game in the middle of the night because they lost a few hands? No, because they know their edge is mathematically guaranteed over thousands of hands. They don't trade on certainty, they trade on mathematical expectancy. This was a total revolution for my mind. I stopped looking at each individual trade as a test of my intelligence or a verdict on my self-worth. Instead, I started viewing it as just one of 1,000 random events. If I lost a trade, it wasn't because I was a bad engineer or a stupid person, it was simply a statistical outlier. A natural part of the distribution of wins and losses. I began to embrace uncertainty instead of fighting it. I stopped trying to act like a prophet who could predict the future and started acting like a manager who controls the present. I realized that while I had zero control over what the market would do, I had absolute, 100% control over my risk. Accepting that I couldn't know if the next candle would be red or green, but knowing exactly how much I would lose if I was wrong, was the moment I finally stopped being a gambler. For an engineer, learning to find peace in not knowing was like learning to breathe underwater. It was the first time I felt true freedom behind the charts. Part 3. Small steps in the dark, approximately 400 words. Here is the rewrite of Part 3, Small Steps in the Dark in English, with a length of approximately 400 to 450 words. This section describes the humble process of rebuilding through discipline and the scientific observation of one's own emotions. Rebuilding a shattered life doesn't happen with a single, heroic grand gesture. It doesn't happen with a lucky break or a sudden windfall that erases all your past mistakes. In reality, it happens in the mundane, boring, and often frustratingly small steps that no one else sees. After I accepted the reality of my losses, I didn't rush back into the market to conquer it. Instead, I went back to the very basics. I opened a small account, humiliatingly small compared to what I had lost, with an amount of money that didn't keep me awake at night. I set a rigid rule for myself. I would take exactly 2 trades a day. No more, no less, even if the most perfect setup appeared at 3 p.m. If I had already taken my 2 trades, I would shut the laptop. In the beginning, this was incredibly difficult. My ego, still bruised and hungry for redemption, would whisper to me in the silence, "You know this one is a winner. Increase the lot size. Make it all back in one go." But I fought those whispers with everything I had. I started treating my trading plan not as a suggestion, but as an engineering safety protocol. I told myself that if I broke my own rules, the entire structure would collapse, just like a bridge built with inferior materials. I also began keeping a journal that was radically different from my old ones. It wasn't just a log of entries, exits, and profit and loss figures. It was a psychological autopsy. I started writing about how I felt the moment I clicked the mouse. "I feel a tightness in my chest." I would write, "I am afraid of losing this $20. Why am I afraid of such a small amount?" I became a scientist of my own emotions, observing my fear and greed as if they were chemical reactions in a test tube. I spent months just trying to stay at break even. In my past life, I would have viewed a month of zero profit as a total failure. But now, I saw it as a monumental victory. I was staying in the game. I was protecting my capital. I was slowly building the mental calluses needed to handle heavier weights later on. Every night, I would close my laptop and walk alone through the quiet streets of my neighborhood. I wasn't dreaming of mansions or sports cars anymore. I was thinking about the man I was becoming. I was becoming someone who could be wrong without being ruined. I was building a new blueprint, one made not of steel, but of patience. So, here we are. Starting from zero isn't a curse, it's a gift. It's a chance to build it right this time. If you are at zero today, don't look at it as an empty space. Look at it as a clean site for a new, stronger foundation. You don't need a complex formula to succeed. You need the courage to admit you don't know what's coming next. And the discipline to manage your risk anyway. You are not a prophet. You are a manager of uncertainty. Thank you for walking with me through this rebuilding phase. In the next episode, we'll talk about the solitude of the long game. How to keep going when the initial excitement is gone and all that's left is the work. I am WalkAlone. Sleep well, trust your process, and stay strong. We will walk again tomorrow.